It's time. It's time to open your eyes. It's time to open your mind. It's time to grow up and face reality. It's time to lock and load because it's MeatTrapper time. Hello everyone and welcome to episode number 223 of MeatTrapper Radio. And boy, is it trapping time now, at least here in Tennessee where I am. We're predicted to have our first heavy frost of the season tonight, and that's always great news. For me, that means tomorrow is squirrel hunting time. I just, even though we have early squirrel seasons here, it just, to me, it's just not hunting season when you're out in the woods slapping skeeters and have ticks crawling all over you. But it seems like when we get that first frost, that's a good sign, you know, and that's a sign that you need to be in the woods. So I'm going to be recording this and producing it and getting it scheduled tonight, so that by the time you hear this, I'm going to be back in the woods. I'll be up in the land between the lakes, just doing a little overnight camping trip. So we'll see. But we've got a lot to talk about tonight. I'm going to follow up on some topics from last week's episode that I had neglected to mention or had not been sufficiently clear about as far as gear that Eric and I used up in the Boundary Waters, and just some more thoughts on gear and Cottage gear makers. I'm going to share a great story with you. And let's see, we're going to, on the backside of tonight's show, on the Patreon side, we're going to talk about 22 long rifle performance on a deer's head, and we've got some great information that was shared with us. And let's see what else. Oh, we're going to talk a little bit about keeping our heads this election season, and I'm going to share why I'm not going to get all worked up about things. So we've got a lot going on, but first I'd like to thank Mr. Brian McKee of SouthernSnares.com, of ThompsonSnares.com, and of Sleepy Creek Traps for sponsoring this broadcast. Without his support, it would not be possible. Brian is a great guy. I think he's finishing up the last of the shows that he was going to do. I'm not sure if he's going to be doing any more this season or not. The show schedule has been all disrupted because of the COVID panic. Everybody's been closing conventions and not having shows and not getting together and all of this stuff, you know, because if we do, everybody will die. That's for sure. But don't get me started on all of that, you know. So anyway, if you do need any last minute supplies, please give Brian a call, and if you do give him a call, tell him MeatTrapper sent you, and tell him thank you for sponsoring the broadcast. It means a lot to me. And even though we're a small tribe, we are a loyal and a vocal tribe, and that's what's important. So let's see. The first thing I want to mention tonight is the snares that I had sent to Croatia have finally arrived. And if you've been listening for a while, you know what I'm talking about. And if you're a newer member, you may not. But one of the things that we do with the proceeds from the Patreon dues is we support other trappers who need support. Whether they be kids. Eric, my buddy Eric, some time ago donated a sizable collection of DVDs, trapping DVDs, which made their way into the hands of people up at the Western Kentucky Free Trappers. There were Micah Sievers up there does a great job getting kids in and organizing activities for the kids. And so that was a great thing that Eric did there, getting those DVDs into the hands of young kids who will watch them over and over. And I was contacted a while back by a trapper in Croatia, and he was explaining the problems that he was having with badgers and with wild boar and all of that on his property, and the almost complete inability to get snares and traps in Croatia. And so I put together a collection of small game snares, general purpose snares, and some southernsnares.com heavy duty hog snares. Really, really professional hog snares with the 1/8-inch cable and number 12 barrel swivels and all of that. Packaged it all up and sent it over to this fella in Croatia. Ernesto is his name. And man, it took a long time for it to get there. The global commerce is just ground to a halt because of the COVID panic, and I guess the virus travels by snares now. But anyway, he finally got the snares, and boy, he was thrilled. He emailed me and told me that he was going to send me pictures of his catches, and that he was teaching his son to snare and all of that kind of stuff. The thing is something like that keeps on giving, because like I explained to him, I said, hey, when you make a catch, just cut the cable and reuse the locks, reuse the swivels, reuse the support collars and all of that. And really all you got to have is new cable. So anyway, that's the kind of stuff that we're able to do by combining our resources. But a couple of things on the last episode I talked about, or it was on the last bonus episode over on Patreon. For the Patreon members, I did a full review of the gear that I used up in the Boundary Water Canoe area on my recent trip. And a couple of things that I neglected to mention. Number one was life jackets. And this is a big deal. I don't think you will ever catch me on the water without a life jacket. It's just that simple. We had a drowning here just the other day, just outside of Nashville. 56-year-old man got in his boat. It was evidently a jet boat or something. Off he went and was not seen again. When he became overdue, they started looking for him, and they found his boat driving in a circle all by itself out in the river. And the boat was damaged. They think it had struck a retaining wall or something. They don't know if it happened before or after his demise, but they eventually found his body in 12 feet of water on the bottom. 12 feet of water. If he'd been wearing a life jacket, he would be alive today, instead of his family having to deal with all of that. But anyway, when I first started planning the Boundary Waters trip, it was hot summer, and Eric and I were corresponding about gear. And he said, you ought to try one of these little Onyx life jackets, the kind that you pull the cord and it blows up. Has the CO2 cartridge and inflates. And he said they're really comfortable. And I was like, I don't know if I trust that. Blah blah blah. And he said, well, you got to think about it. You're on flat water down there. The water temperature is warm. The weather is hot. It's not like you're going to go hypothermic and all of that. And he said, I wear the full-blown Stolquist type life jackets if I'm in rough water or cold weather or what have you. But other than that, I wear the little Onyx self-inflator. So I went out and I bought one, and I have to tell you, I really enjoyed wearing it. It's a lot more comfortable, just having this little belt thing on that has the handle that you pull. In hot weather, it keeps you a lot cooler. It's a lot easier to move around, a lot easier to paddle, and all of that sort of thing. And if I'm going out when it's flat water and winds are calm, just a typical hot summer day, that's what I wear. But when it gets to if the weather's going to be rough, if it's going to be windy, a chance of rain, if it's going to be cold, if I'm going to be in deep water, cold water, or anything like that, or if I'm going out on big water where there's barges going by and motorboats and all that kind of stuff, then I'll go back to the traditional Stolquist vest. And one of the side benefits of a big vest like that, the traditional style vest is that it's insulation. If you're out camped, if you're out canoe camping or kayak camping or what have you, creek bank camping, and you start to get cold and you've got all your layers on, you can always put that life jacket on. You can either put it on outside, or if it's dry, you can put it on in between layers and put a layer over it to trap body heat, and it will provide a good deal of extra insulation. So just remember, your life vest is not only a flotation device, but it can be an insulating device as well. So that's just a quick tip there. And that's why when I went to the Boundary Waters, I ultimately chose to wear a traditional life vest rather than the self-inflating one. It was simply for the additional wind protection and warmth in case I needed it. As it turned out, I did not need it, but it was there if I would have needed it. You can also use it as additional padding under you if you need to sleep, and maybe if you're using a self-inflating pad and it pops or something or gets a leak, you've at least got some padding to lay on by unrolling that life vest. So number of uses for it. Now, I mentioned that I was really impressed by the Discovery 119 canoe that we used, and I want to revisit this just briefly tonight. I was so impressed that I purchased one. I purchased it out of Atlanta. They shipped it up here, had it to me in just a couple of days. I took it out the other day, and it's interesting because it's always, it's always good to paddle a boat before you buy it. But it's even better if you can paddle it in your terrain. And I have to tell you that I like this boat even more now that I have paddled it in my area. I took it out for its initial cruise the other day. Just did a couple of miles after work, and I actually hit a top speed of 7.4 miles an hour. Now, you can't sustain that by any means, but that was really stroking it, and on some good smooth glass water. But the boat is good. It's really good. I like it to the point that I'm selling my my Pungo 140, which is a sit-inside kayak. The Discovery 119 has more cargo space. It paddles almost as easily. It weighs about the same. It's hard to find a negative about it. And it's just like Eric had originally told me. He said, this boat does not excel at any one thing. It's not going to be the lightest canoe. It's not going to have the biggest capacity of any canoe. It's not going to track the straightest of any canoe. It's not going to be the most stable of any canoe. But when you look at it, it does all of those things very well. It tracks pretty good. It's pretty stable. It has a pretty good capacity. It's not that heavy, really. And it's just a great all-round boat. So anyway, if you're looking for a one-man little rig, or something for one man and a small dog, something like that, I give it 5 stars. I'm very impressed with it. And after I get rid of this Pungo, I won't have any kayaks. And I'm probably going to end up buying a second Discovery 119 to have 2 of them here. So, and I had one other question. Jeff had a question that I didn't mention tents or anything, but what we used is tarps. I'm a tarp man. I don't even own a tent. Okay, I do not own a single tent anymore. I've given all my tents away to people that needed the gear more than I did. And I'm either in a hammock or I'm sleeping on the ground. If I'm in a hammock, I've got a tarp over the top of my hammock. And if I'm on the ground, I've got a tarp over me. And the tarp that I used was the War Bonnet Outdoors ground tarp. Great thing. So anyway, that's just some things that I felt like I had either left out of the last episode or not expounded upon them enough, and or had some questions that people submitted, and just wanted to go over those. Now, as you know, if you're a regular listener, I'm always touting supporting local makers, buy American, and even rather than buy American, if you can buy locally, whether it's food or anything like that. And when it comes to any type of outdoor gear, if you need tarps, sleeping quilts, anything like that, if there's a cottage industry that provides those goods or services, that's the first place I'm going to look, because usually you're going to get better service, you're going to get better materials, you're going to get a better quality product, and you're putting your money into the hands of an honest to God entrepreneur, an actual guy who has taken the leap and who's put himself out there and trying to earn a living by his own two hands, rather than a corporation that has HR departments and diversity officers and all of this crap that I really don't care to support with my money. If you're looking for knives, Brass Knuckles Impact Devices, Muskrat Man does a great job. I buy a lot of stuff from him. I've mentioned War Bonnet Outdoors for hammocks and tarps. My sleeping quilts all come from Arrowhead Equipment. Those guys do a great job. And so that brings me to Cook Custom Sewing. And this is a guy, Dan Cook. He's up in Minnesota, and I became intimately familiar with his gear on the trip. And one of the things, I mentioned this on my gear episode, was that up there, they do a lot with packing stuff in 30-liter barrels for canoe trips, or 5-gallon buckets or 7-gallon buckets. And he makes a series of stuff sacks that are circular stuff sacks with waterproof zippers on them. And I fell in love with those things. Well, I got home, and what I wanted was I wanted to be able to put some of my quilts in these things, because these stuff sacks, they not only fit a 5-gallon bucket or a 30-liter barrel, but they slide right down in my backpack, and they fill it perfectly. It's like it's made for it. But I needed some of these stuff sacks that were a bigger capacity but still had the circular shape. So I emailed Cook Custom Sewing, and I said, "Hey Dan, I bought 3 of your 30-liter stuff sacks up in Minnesota at Paragus Outdoors, and these things are 9 inches wide in diameter by 7 inches tall." And I said, "I'd like some special made 14 inches tall, like twice as tall, to accommodate my sleeping gear. Do you do special orders and all that?" And he wrote me right back, I think it was the next day, and he said, "Yeah, this is it's a $20 upcharge for special orders like that. Just send me the dimensions." And so I did. I sent him the dimensions, gave him my credit card number, and said, charge me what you got to charge me, and let me know when they're ready. And so today they showed up in the mail. It was just a few days. So in other words, I emailed him the entire time, from the first email to me receiving the finished product, custom made to my specification, was about a week. Now think about that. That's service right there. And of course they were exactly as I ordered. And the thing is he actually adjusted the final bill down, because he was able to save some money on shipping, and he put a little note in there. The shipping was less than what the website estimated, so I charged you only for what the actual shipping was, and here's $8.61, back off your credit card bill. You just don't get that these days. You just don't get that kind of service and that kind of honesty. And when you do get it, you need to support these people. So that's just something that I wanted to share, because I know I feel like or I sound like a broken record when I say buy local, support your cottage gear makers. But these are the guys that you can actually email them or pick up the phone and call them. And he's working out of his basement, and he's turning out packs and stuff sacks and everything else. So I just wanted to give him kudos. And if you're interested in any of that kind of stuff, you can look them up on the internet. It's Cook Custom Sewing, CCS. great stuff. Now, one final piece of gear, and this is something that I did not take to Minnesota with me, but it's something that I use a lot down here, especially in cold weather when I'm going to be having a fire, and it's something that I wanted to mention to you, and that is, they call them grills, but, down south here we would refer to it as a grate. And that is, for us, a grill is like a barbecue grill. It's, holds the charcoal and everything. But a grate is just the wire rack on top. And you'll see this a lot down south where people will go out and, if they have campsites in the woods or something, they will just leave the grates out there. And what they'll do is often drive a nail into a tree and just hang the grate up on the tree. With the understanding if other people come by, you're free to use it. Just hang it back up, no need to steal it or throw it away or anything. And that way it's just one less thing that you have to tote into the woods. Well, what I use is a grate that is made by Purcell Trench, and that's Purcell, Purcell, and then the word trench. And if you get on the internet, you look them up, and this is a small company, and they make super high quality grates of different configurations. And these are made out of hollow stainless steel tubing, and they're I think it's, TIG welding? It's either TIG or MIG. I can't remember. I'd have to look at their website. But being stainless steel, the stuff lasts basically forever. And with using hollow stainless steel tubing, it's extremely lightweight. So you can be an ultra lightweight backpacker and still carry this grate with you. And these are not round shaped grates. They're rectangular in shape. So they'll slide right down in your backpack and you won't even know it's there, or they'll slide in the outside pocket of a backpack. They don't have any legs on them. And so you prop them up on some rocks or on two logs or what have you and build your fire underneath it. And they come in various configurations. They have just the basic grate with like 4 bars running across it that will hold your skillet. It'll hold pots, cups, or you can grill a steak or something like that, chicken breasts on it or what have you. But you wouldn't want to do burgers because it could fall through the bars. But they make other models that have stainless steel expanded metal, or combinations where they have expanded metal on one end and open grate bars on the other, or what have you. But you're probably going to pay, I think it's anywhere from $60 to $120 for one of these grates, depending upon the size and the material. I think they also make some out of titanium tubing. But mine has lasted for years, and it's just an extremely lightweight, extremely convenient way. When you pull up on the creek bank or something and you've got rocks or logs, or you dig a hole, you lay this thing across the top and you're cooking. You're good to go. And so anyway, that's just another example of a cottage gear maker that turns out merchandise that is far superior to anything you can go and get on Amazon or get at Walmart or Academy or anything like that. It's lighter, it's stronger, and it's made in America by Americans. And I was checking before I did this broadcast, I checked their website, and he had a big note on the front page of his website talking about the increase in the cost of his materials. And he said that the cost of his stainless steel tubing that he buys has gone up over 300% recently. And so that's why there had been an increase in the prices on his website. And, we talk about this all the time, but, this is only going to continue. The more they print money, the more they flood the market with money, the more the stimulus checks that they print, the more money that the Fed prints and buys to prop up stocks, so that the wealthy class get wealthier. The people with assets, they're going to have their wealth protected. And the end result is when this money trickles back into the real economy, it causes inflation. And they estimate, I was looking at shadow stats the other day. They estimate that inflation is running at 8% a year now, true inflation. And of course, the government lies about all of this stuff because they'll say, oh, you look at your laptop, the laptop that you bought this year is faster and it has more memory than the laptop you bought last year. And so even though the price has gone up a little bit, when you measure the price versus the speed of the CPU, the price has actually gone down, and so prices are lowering. They every time they open their mouth, it's a lie. I mean, they lie about everything. And so, but when you're the guy that's actually, buying steel and welding it into something and making something, you know exactly what's happening in the real economy. You know exactly what you're paying for inputs. I don't think he'll mind me mentioning this, but my buddy Chip at expandapantraps.com, when he has to buy steel to make his big trap pans, and he'll tell you right up front the cost of steel has gone through the roof. Price of lumber, same thing is going on with the price of lumber. If you're going to go out and build a house now, you better sit down and get ready for sticker shock when you see how much the lumber is going to cost you. It's all through the economy. So one way to combat that sort of thing is to buy quality and buy once. Whether it's a stuffed sack, whether it's a sleeping quilt, whether it's a grill grate. If you go and you buy quality material and you get it from a true craftsman, you buy that thing once, it's going to last you for a lifetime. It's going to last you a long, long time. And that's one way to beat inflation, because you're not having to buy it over and over. You're not having to buy that new TV every 3 years because the electronics wear out. We live in such a disposable society. It's horrible. But so anyway, I just thought I would mention that. So now, if you were a Patreon member, I'd like to invite you to stay tuned for the second half of tonight's show. And if you were not a Patreon member, I would like to ask you to consider becoming one and supporting this broadcast. It's $5 a month, and for that you get to join the MeatTrapper tribe, which are one of the finest group of individuals that I am privileged to be associated with. We have people with a vast array of skills that share their knowledge freely over on Patreon. And there's a lot of bonus material. I put out bonus episodes on a regular basis, and we generally have a good time. So if you're a member, stay tuned, and if not, we'll see you next time.